quiz.
Yeah.
There was a quiz?
There was one due. Do you have your computer?
Oh, wait, actually,
Yeah,
Did you do it? You what? I didn't know Hopefully this will make Did you do the quiz?
Yeah, if you have any more, you should let you.
If I have more than this.
I love bubblegum. I think it's so good. You are an amazing human being. Oh my god, she's gonna be like out of bubblegum.
No, I'm not. I just lost it on my
I was going to ask if you have like,
When do we have to do these?
I don't want to take it.
Oh, can I have, let me see. I literally think it's right now.
I was like, that's what I'm doing. Look, we're all
I just have Bradford.
Meet the team. We're so cute. I don't think the follow. I haven't oh my god, but pick my shampoo.
Oh my god.
My grandma is a hairdresser, so I buy this shampoo, but she buys it. Like, she buys it like something to me because she gets it from her.
Okay.
So I get like a $30 shampoo for $50.
Oh my god, that's cool.
So like, but you know, like so it makes a little
They do?
because I have to like use the shipping. And I'm always like, I don't know if I'm gonna have shampoo for tomorrow, but yeah. So I'm like,
Go ahead.
I might post my, I'm gonna use the Shake Shack. The first person that goes to my
Shake Shack, yeah.
I'm gonna look on the schedule actually.
So are you.
Yeah, I was gonna post online.
Oh, that's why. Yeah, online. Class 2, right?
Yeah, I think we have to kind of know.
No. Doggy treatments are done with the material.
I'm gonna try that.
So let's get our name tags out, folks. We have a lot to do tonight. Another exciting night. And I'll answer any of your questions. I can't believe it. We have one more session and that's it.
Yeah, one more session is presentation, so I don't count it.
Well, I counted your class because I'm gonna get the spot. We're gonna be inspired. So, can't believe it.
Right now, I'm just here like, forgetting chemistry.
That's right here.
That's the class I needed A in. It's a struggle, even with Dr. Duckout.
All right, can I, let's get our name tags out, let's start, let's do a roll. Let's do a roll. And let's, make sure, put the date, name, date, and put first name, last name, and phone number. Pass that around.
Oh my gosh.
Put yourself as number one.
Is that coming?
I don't know.
It's so cute.
So James, how'd it go?
Oh, yes. That was the other week, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked it.
Literally going
So comments, questions? let's get the name tags out, we can start.
That's in my bag. Oh, you know, she was my name, so she can't put
Do it and let me know what
back
you
extra credit. Yeah. She probably doesn't, but that would be
Is that it?
make that interesting.
You want me to do it?
Name, put name, first name, last name, email, phone. So Meg, you put your name and then let's go. Okay, folks, welcome back. It's been too long, and we'll start again. So today is Wednesday, November 14th. We meet again, what date do we meet again?
28.
Is it 28?
Next time we meet?
Yeah, next time we meet.
28.
Wow, amazing. Next time we meet on the 28th, we're gonna present your projects. And as I mentioned before, there'll be, it'll be about 7 to 8 minute presentation for your projects. And your projects should be well defined. And I'll go over give some feedback to your projects now. We talked about having some kind of PowerPoint presentation, and along with this, having the links to your website, and also
So you want us to have like a PowerPoint presentation?
I'd like you to start off with a PowerPoint presentation, and in the PowerPoint presentation, then you can put to the section,
The hyperlink to the website.
the hyperlinks to your website, the hyperlinks to your apps,
Okay.
and basically, in that section 2 is what you have. It's also, you know, that what you want probably in your PowerPoints and not necessarily your website are some things that you may not necessarily want to be more detailed explanations. Also your business model. How are you going to sustain your project? Also, the future. We had time limitations here. So what are the next steps for this future? Where are you going to go from there? What needs to be done? Maybe in terms of pilot testing. It may be in terms of getting your back end of your app completed. Maybe the back end, maybe looking at additional, getting additional clients, users. And I'll go over some of your projects now, your websites. As I'm doing this, make sure that you have a link that's clickable on our Blackboard here that I can go straight to clicking it. I'll go over additionally, so for Wednesday, November 28th, we'll have our presentations, and I'll also do a review for the exam. Tonight I'll talk about the additional chapters that will be on the exam. It will be the same format as the last exam with the readings from the book and also open-ended, questions. We'll review that on the 28th as well. What else? Today, we have a guest speaker, and our guest speaker, I'm happy to announce, was a former graduate of this class. He's a physician in the University of Miami in urology, and he used to be the chair of urology, and also works for the VA. And for his project, when he was in this class, he wanted to do a men's institute. What happens is, what turns out all over the world is men don't like to go to doctors. And basically, ways in which men can communicate, and what we suggested is he can use collaborative tools to bring men in. So he's gonna come in and do some men's institute. He also did a master's degree in translational research at the School of Medicine, which I'm a part of. And what that was is basically trying to bring what's on the scientific bench to bring it to product to consumers and to others. So he did an avatar kind of way in which to teach physicians in training how to do better bedside manners, how to do better social skills. And what I found out is he now is going to do a startup himself. So he's bringing one of his colleagues, but he's doing a startup. So he was all excited. Faith and Lauren were doing some of their work, and they want to work with the VA. So I suggested they get in touch with him, and he was just so excited to come. So after his practice today at 6, I think his last patient is at 6, he's coming down here just to be with us. So he should be coming in about another, I'd say in another hour. So if you see him come through with his colleagues. So what I want him to do is talk about that technology in his Men's Institute, basically where he left off when he graduated from this class, and then talk about his startup. Yeah. It's not working, streaming? Okay, so set that up. Thank you so much. So tell Faith that I'm gonna start a new stream. Oh, you know what? Tell Faith to go to Steam It at the cycle. Let me just do a new one. Thank you so much. We'll just use the same one. Go to steamit.com at the cycle. And tell her to go to the 5 o'clock class. Click on the 5 o'clock class. And in the 5 o'clock class, you should see steamit.com /@ the cycle. That also spells my cell number. THEPSYCH, like site, and the company, CO. No way. Yeah. By the way, if you want, that's part of my research. I'm doing search engine optimization with combining a vanity phone number with the website. So, if you want to work with me next semester, you're welcome to it. So this is my cell number as well, the site number. So, and tell her to click on the 5 p.m. because I'm just continuing it. And now, if we go in, let's see. This one, that's working. Wait. So let me try to use it. Let me try it again. So let's do it again. Let's see here. Perfect, great. Faith, you can participate, you can ask, we'll see if we'll make it so at least you can check, to see if, tell her to text you when she has some questions. Okay? Perfect, yes.
I have a quick question about the presentation. When you
Yes.
said you include like links to the website and the app, do you want us to like do a little walkthrough of any, like if we have an app, you want a little like screenshot walkthrough? Okay.
I want your presentation when we get the remember Kirst that was here in the beginning where he invested in companies? He could sit here and say, this,
Okay.
I can see that I want to invest in you. Doesn't have to be everything complete, but I can see there's a problem, I can give you a solution, I can see that the team is serious. The team is somebody, is a group that I want to invest in,
Okay, got
and
it.
they have an articulate issue. So if I go to your BTE 450, let's just do this in the beginning and then I'll cover some more material. Let's go to course documents, and I'm in the first one. So we have, how many students we have? 5, 6. Basically here, Kaylee? Yeah, so you have, make this linkable, Kaylee. I don't know what to tell you. And then, is it linkable? No, so make it linkable. Have your neighbors help you. You can't get it linkable. Right, and then I have group 9, 10, 11, right, that I have. Okay, so redo it. Okay. So, basically, if I would, anyone want me to look at theirs specifically? So, did you do the yours, Monica?
Yeah.
Did you redo it?
Yeah, I mean,
So what number are you?
I'm group 11.
Group 11. Let's start with this one.
Yeah, last time you said to add separate pages for.
So it's the last one? Which one is
No,
it?
group 10. Sorry, I'm in error. It's group 10. You said to add individual pages for the patient, like family members, and the homemaker.
Okay, what is your page?
Your page is like geared towards the elderly
It's
person.
what?
Geared towards the elderly person. I wasn't sure how else to phrase it.
Maybe put, I don't know, maybe in terms of the patient or something. Your page, I don't know what that means. And loved ones, maybe your family members, doesn't necessarily, and what's homemaker?
It's like their individual pages. So like they click in and sign.
Who is it? What is a definition of a homemaker?
A homemaker, that's one of the things for the site is that we connect them to like companions and homemakers and someone who will come to their house and take care of them so they don't have
So
to
a
go
caregiver.
Yeah.
So put caregiver, as homemaker sounds like it's like some, you know, it's traditionally been like a housewife or something. But change that to caregiver.
Okay.
And loved ones is family,
Yeah.
so put family.
Okay.
Maybe all my family isn't loved ones, you know what I mean? Loved ones
Okay.
means like, loved ones means some, it basically is, caregiver, family,
Okay. Yeah, just,
and then like client or something like that.
okay.
And then are you doing an app with this?
That would, I feel like that'd be the next step because I have no clue how to make an app.
Well, then you wanna look for those look for free app development software, just like Wix. Did you know how to make a website? Right? You didn't need to be a programmer. Same thing with, app development, of creating the screens, where you're gonna create the screen, and then you have in this case, you have about who's the team here?
We have our pictures up. Do you want,
Where is that?
at the bottom?
So I make a tab for I make a tab for, and you talk about what are each person doing? So I make another tab of the team, okay? Okay, so this, let's go the other way. Okay, so Liz, Kyle, and Monica here, so, have you done anything different? Group 11, Anastasia, and then Ricky, Chelsea, what?
Yeah, we made a few changes, like we changed our pictures.
Okay, what you can look at it?
If you want.
I'm trying to do a color thing, because like this starts with a color thing. Like that, like that works, that works.
Okay.
And then it comes with this.
Yeah, everything loads in, like, you have to scroll through.
Okay.
Here's us.
Okay. Okay, and then there's 3 more or what?
Yeah, we're gonna make that button work. Just
Okay,
haven't.
but at least have a
Or we
description
should
of
put
each
it
one,
up here.
right?
Do you wanna put it maybe?
Folks, a lot of this stuff, a lot of these critiques, you can critique your own. It's not tech, you know what I'm talking about here is when you look at it, and you can send this, you can send a link to your parents and have them give you feedback, you know, and give other people feedback. Folks, if you want to speak to each other, please text each other. Okay? Then, you want, Lauren, you want to ask Faith if she hears me? That she can, hear in this case. Okay, Sean, Deb, and Isaiah, what's new here?
So we're gonna wait for Sean because Sean is not here right now. But we're gonna try to, if you go to the about, sorry, not about, sorry, conditions. Right, I apologize.
What?
We make conditions.
Conditions. We don't know why it's not updating. But we're gonna, once you click the quick for consultation, we're gonna add another page that shows the insurance plans.
Okay.
And then once you click on the insurance plan, say you want to select an insurance plan, we're gonna have a list of doctors, physician groups, and then we're building that up. Right. I don't know why it's not showing up right now, but
Okay, you're working, okay, and
Yeah.
then about this is about what?
about
And what about your team?
yeah, keep it going down. That's not it's not edited right now.
Okay,
It should be, but I don't know why it's not showing up.
okay. And Deb, is this you?
No, so I just put my photo. That's not me.
Another life or what? What are we doing?
It could be me. It's part of the format.
Okay, part of the format?
Part of the format, yeah.
Okay,
I don't know why it's not updated.
Wait, who's Perez?
okay, all right, so we'll check it out.
No, it updated. It just came in.
Okay, and, any others, and then what are we doing here?
Oh, that's why.
We have a new website, like, it's currently being shown on.
Oh, it's not this one?
No, that's the one we showed you last week.
Okay, all right. And what about Gabriella? And, Gabrielle, Kelly, and Danielle, what's up here? Has this been updated or what?
Yeah, we're like editing it now. We worked on
Okay,
it
so
before.
everything, okay. So everybody understand the idea, and then, group 5, do we, it's going in and
I think we
out?
should change that background. It's distracting. No. I purposely put it up there. No, but I think it's important to be the first one because it is the hot one. That's my only concern.
Try to number, try
Yeah.
to, Mike, put a mic.
I didn't even realize it wasn't
No, right?
Your buttons going over everything.
To stop her
What?
mic.
I like this kind of.
Oh no. I'll just like a row underneath.
Yeah.
Tell her to, plug in her mic.
I just did.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, any other questions?
That's the middle.
Any other ones that I need to, look at here? And what about yours, Lorna? You did not? Okay. And group 3?
Yeah, I added some screenshots from the app that's working on. It's not on the website though.
Okay. And what about your website?
Yeah, we changed the website too.
So is this the right link?
Yes.
Okay, so what's new here that I need to look at?
Basically everything. We like redid the whole thing.
Okay, separate from type 2, okay.
Because like we had to change our whole kind of concept too.
We talked about it,
Yeah,
right? I think this is a better idea that you, kind of concentrate on one,
Yeah.
and then you can, and you know what would be interesting? Is to look at, there's a lot of wearables, there's a lot of mobile tech going into this area. And maybe you could even have a section for the future, even taking a couple of those where you're gonna be reviewing a lot of the mobile apps, the IoTs are available in, diabetes.
I don't like this
is an
color
area that
transition
It's so prevalent.
from here to here.
Plus,
I wanna
type 2, what I like about type 2 is you can reverse it, you can do things to help with it, and you may have some areas, I think, here, actual reviews, so I can even take a few of the products and use those as prototypes, as this will be an area for reviews, and you can have it two ways.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
It's similar to what I was talking to James's group, where they're gonna do like the IoT, the wearables, is have the vendors send in and have groups of people throughout the world actually evaluate it. Have people that have type 2 diabetes actually be the testers of it.
Yeah, because I feel like there's not a good place for that right now. And like people don't really have good customer reviews right now, so this could be a good home page for that.
A good homepage for the reviews, plus you can have credibility,
Right.
rather than I'm just, you know how a lot of times in social media, where you have the influencers, they're getting paid by these companies, and I think that's a great product, but rather a serious, almost like an academic environment that you can review these. So I put another section on that, of reviews, and then you can get
Definitely
it,
not.
you can get the content from vendors, and then you can get a group of people
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah, I wanted to stick to website because I knew the app
have
would
it,
be
and
hard.
also educate, where you can get education, and then you can use
Yeah, I want to do it. I just
collaboration
said best way to
tools
do
where
it
you
is your
get groups
website.
of people together,
Have a
talking about
defense
what
team.
happens with type 2 diabetes, plus
Yeah, we just had it successful on the
having
phone.
physicians talk about it, podiatrists to talk about it, giving education, showing, you know, healing.
See, that sounds so good.
Yeah, I would do that. Yes, yeah.
All right? That help? So let's look at it that way. Okay, Corey, Nico, and Ty, what's up?
We made changes.
And what can you tell me?
About Us is fixed.
Okay. And what else?
Ty's not here for the best part. We fixed that. Our service, sort of more along the lines of our business model.
Okay, so what else needs to be done?
We're working on, because we're doing like a blockchain sort of thing, and we want to have like, we're gonna technically have an ICO.
What?
Without officially creating one, we want to like sort of show that on this.
Yeah, you need almost like diagrams, almost step by step of what it's gonna be. And part of it you can show here, and part of it you can show in your, and possibly in your PowerPoint more in detail. But this needs to be, done.
Of just what they would do to get like one of these coins.
But also what the model is, rather than what they were doing these points. Okay, what else? Any other ones that you want me to? Don't tell me I lost everything. Yeah.
They uploaded the PowerPoint for the guest speaker that came in, the one that didn't know what to do with her business, but she didn't want to be about it.
Oh, did you do the mega service for me? I tagged you.
Why does
Go
it
back to
not
courses.
do the whole thing?
So I'm gonna go to courses, Miami. Anyone else? You can stay with me afterwards. So let me just go to courses, and I'll go to our regular section of 450. I'm gonna go to course documents. I'm gonna go to, I believe it was in the PowerPoint. Let's see if I can get, in the PowerPoint. Chelsea, in the PowerPoint, and open a new window.
We'll move it over. I think for now it's fine.
Okay, got it.
Open when done.
I guess we're just
Right.
gonna make it look like super pretty.
She had a good PowerPoint. Her issue was she didn't understand.
Essentially, wasn't she trying to do the same thing last week, that speaker trying to do both patients?
But the one last week wasn't doing anything on blockchain.
Yeah, no, she was doing everything.
The whole idea is in blockchain, so basically, she shows the team, this is what yours should look like. She did the PowerPoint, she asked it, they basically took her, they're trying to get investors. And that's what, Danny, that's what I wanted you to do, is try to get investors. You got your team, you can just,
Yeah.
maybe you don't have the PhDs and the MBAs, but you guys can do it of where the team is, what are today's healthcare needs, right? What's her approach? We're guided by the applications. What's the market look like? What's the needs to create the opportunity, right? Who are the competitors? What are the advantages? Her issue was the problem of she wasn't able to explain this part. But she has the good slides. The value proposition, this is kind of even nice, the business model that you have. The other part that I want you to add is also, what is the future?
Is this PowerPoint on Blackboard?
It's on Blackboard under your PowerPoint. That's the beauty. So you can use it. But I'm just telling you, my contention with her was not the issue of her PowerPoints. Her PowerPoints were fine. And she just depended, she just said, that's my programmer. Those questions are for my programmer. I didn't ask her to do the coding, but she should understand what is behind it. Just like when you're gonna be doing your blockchain, I'm not asking you to code it, but you would be able to understand what is the model and what's happening here. So it's with all our other PowerPoints. Okay, did that answer your question? Questions? Okay, the next part. Let me do chapter 11 as well. So I'm gonna go to chapter 11. I'm gonna go over 11, 12, and 13 tonight. To make sure that everybody understands what are the main issues and what do I need to do. So let me start here. I'm gonna enable editing. And I'm gonna go to my slideshow and I'm gonna go over. So basically, folks, when I'm dealing with data, what do I need to do? I have to have standards in my data. We talk data, and that's really the key. If I talk about what are the trends in IT, what are the trends in healthcare, it's what? I want to have, of course, better outcomes. I want to reduce my costs. I want to increase my revenues. I want to get closer to my customer, which are my patients, and I want to have better outcomes. When I'm going to be doing any of the technology now, the whole reason for the technology is to be able to assess where I am in terms of my present situation and also where I can forecast. In order to do this, I need to be able to share my data and I need to have health IT standards. Those standards are important for data exchange. We talked about the data exchange, and if I have standards, then I can exchange my data because I have something called a data dictionary. A data dictionary defines my fields, and I can use my naming convention I can map one system to another. This is a key. We always talked about this. The data exchange, the content, and then we have these functional standards. Now, when we have functional standards, they have something called ad hoc. You need to know what ad hoc means. Ad hoc means on the fly. Ad hoc means that I don't have to define in advance. De facto is going to be basically the default. You can think about another word for de facto is default. And of course, I have government mandates. In the United States, I have HIPAA regulations. Other governments have other health care. We also talk about with the standards. And then I have what we call consensus, that I have a number of parties agree. They have something called ANSI. You can look that up later on, but ANSI is a National Standards Institute, American National Standards of Institute, and doesn't just deal with healthcare. And everybody understand my question? What's my question, James? Is ANSI just for health data? Everybody understand the question? So what's the answer? No, it's basically, it's all standards, right? If I'm talking about the shipping industry, if I'm talking about university, if I'm talking about the publishing industry, they're basically national standards set up, and these standards for these accredited ones. One of the things that we talk about is HL7 standards, which HL7 is called Health Level 7, and what's the purpose of HL7? You'll need this for your test. We'll have a test sometime. So we'll need this for the test. So what is it? What's HL7? Isaiah, what's HL7? If we don't know, what do we do?
Google.
We look it up, right? I'm not the only one working tonight. You're working too.
It's
The
a,
set of international standards for transfer of clinical and administrative data between software applications.
Okay, so is it just for the U.S.? What does it say?
No,
It's international, right? So the idea, you can put in your notes here that this is an international standard. What's the whole purpose of it is to what? Exchange data, right? Health data. And how are they doing that exchange of data is what did I say? There has to be some kind of definitions of the fields. So before I talked about it, I talked about markup language. Remember that? ML, markup language, and not only all these acronyms, Ricky, right, is machine learning, and it's also markup language, right? So ML stands for markup language. Markup language is traditionally, and that's been coming through the old publishing days, is how do you get a markup language, is that you have less than and a greater than sign, and you have what we call tags. You can put them in your notes. We have predefined tags, and one of the predefined tags is something called HTML. HTML. And that stands for what? Anybody remember? And what do we care? Because we can look it up. It stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So anytime you're on a website, right, and the look and the feel of a website, that's done with HTML. So the font size, right, the title, those are all part of tags that are predefined. Title and the end of the title. That's predefined HTML. There's something called, and that is, you can put it in your notes, that is how on a website, using a browser, how the content will look, how it will be formatted. Everybody with me? There's some other markup language which is called XML. ML stands for what, Cindy? What's the ML stand for? Help her out. Help each other. Markup language, right? I know, it's a long night. Markup language, right? The X really stands for what? Extensible. And what does that mean? And once you understand it, you'll see it. What did I say HTML was? It was predefined tags. About what? The look and the feel. XML is what we really call metadata. Have you heard about metadata, Danny? You're my big data analytics guy, right? You're supposed to be knowing this stuff. And what is it? What does metadata mean?
An enormous amount of data, like, I don't know. I don't know the exact definition by heart, but I'm assuming that.
Not by heart. You don't have to have it by heart. You have to have an understanding. So,
Yeah,
so we'll get it done. So the next time when you have an interview, you'll just snap that off, right?
Yeah.
That you won't say it's a lot of data. So what is metadata?
It says it's a set of data that describes other data.
Okay, I'll tell you what it is. What did I say HTML is? HTML is the look and the feel of data. Metadata is about the data. It's not specifically Ricky. It's not specifically Chelsea, but it is that that's a name. That's first name. If I'm talking about, you remember we looked at the stock market? Give me what metadata would be in the stock market. It's not IBM, but it's what? The symbol. It's not the number 200 but it's what? The open. It's not 250, but it's what? The close. So it's describing the data. So you remember when they used the metadata when they were looking for terrorists? Remember after the Patriot Act and 9/11, the government was listening to phone calls. Especially they were looking for, anybody know that? Anybody hear of Edward Snowden? Edward Snowden was basically revealing that the CIA and so forth were basically looking at phone calls of who was calling whom. A call was coming in, let's say, from, Pakistan to the U.S., or a call was calling from the U.S. to Pakistan or Afghanistan. That is what we call metadata. So we were able to see it was at a certain time, but we don't have all the specifics. That's the data. So what's the purpose of that? That's the metadata. That's kind of the data that we're talking about. So what is XML? Is that users can create their own tags. Put that in your notes. XML, users can create their own tags. So for instance, let's say we were a publisher in the publishing industry. What kind of tags would we want? Author, what else? Title, what else? ISBN, what else? The year that it was written. How many pages it has. The publisher. We would create, as a publishing group, create our own tags. And we would decide as a group, we're an industry of publishing. These are our XML tags. And why do we want to do it? Because one publishing company would work with the others. And then you can say is find me all, and then we could have like subject. Find me all those books in finance and healthcare. With the author of Rush. From 2017. Yes.
So, is it like safe to say just define XML it's like, or metadata, sorry, is data without being processed?
No, but it's rather a data definition,
Okay.
data tag. It's not that it's not data processed, but it's the data tag. So I can find me all stocks, healthcare stocks, or even I could say find me all medical equipment stocks that are between opening price 100 and 150. If we have the metadata, if we have the XML that we define, we can find it. But if you call it opening and I call it beginning price, the computer, I don't care what they say about artificial intelligence, still can't relate opening price with open. So we decide as together. So what's HL7 then? Who can tell me? Given that fact that I talked about the publishing, what does it seem that HL7 would be?
It's the guidelines for the standards in XML.
It's basically predefined health tags. Doesn't it make sense now? That the health industry said we're going to have predefined tags, and why do they want it? Because if I'm in one hospital, right, and I want to share it with another hospital, and what did we say, Deb? Was it international or was it for the U.S. only?
International.
International, and I go to France, and we're all using the HL7 standard, will I be able, and then Cindy, if I want to get population health data, isn't it great if I had HL7 standards, and I said, find me all those patients that have type 2 diabetes, right, that are female and are between 20 and 30 years old. If I don't have that standards, I don't have those basically it's extensible, and we've decided on the HL7, we've decided on those tags. Everybody with me? Does that make sense? They make a big deal out of it, and these are old ways that they used to have it called what? Electronic data interchange. What is it? The exact same thing that we were talking about before is that data interchange is still the same. So you can see here there are other organizations, you don't have to worry about that, but that vocabulary has to be the same. That's all they want, that I can share data. Notice it's all kind of giving the same language that I can do it. Those standards of my HL7 standards are the same. And notice here are other standards. If I can standardize, then we can talk to each other. Just like the same idea with language, right? If we speak different languages, I'm going to need some translator in between. And notice what they want for the HL7 is number 4. What's 4 say here, Cindy?
Population health support.
And what is it? Doesn't it make sense? If it's an international standard, I want to do population health. How do I know if there's not going to be another Ebola coming through? And how do I get that? And how do I have in this one, in 7, trust infrastructure, and that I can trust it? And that's sometimes where they're thinking maybe in the future we'll have blockchain, because then we can have trustworthiness. And it's the same thing and we were talking about before, are those standards development. I'm going to finish with this. So you can see here those summaries, they have examples of those summaries, but that's basically what it is think about it, if you had to even write about it, It's the way in which I can exchange information. I have to get some kind of standards. And the HL7, they're using predefined tags, just like I would do in the stock market or in any industry. I create my tag. So instead, in the stock industry, I would create then one tag that says the symbol, right? Another tag would be what? Open price. Remember how we did the thing? Another one would be close price. Another one could be volume. Another one could be what industry it was. And it could be like the sub-industry. So not only healthcare, but it could be medical devices. And the same thing that I would do with health. It's the same idea with the HL7. Questions? Easy when you know it, right? Now, in chapter 12, they're talking about IT strategic plan. And what the heck does that mean? Doesn't that sound good? IT strategic plan. And I want to convey to you this evening that it all makes sense and they just use words around it to try to confuse us. What do I want to do? If I'm in an organization, I want to use IT not for IT's sake, not for just technology's sake, but what? To better my company, to better my goals. And that's what I want to do. And when they talk about the importance of an IT strategic plan is, why am I using IT and what should I, and if I just leave it to my IT group, what will they do? They'll just buy more fancier equipment and they won't even think about, will this help the company? So the idea of IT strategy is looking at a way to align what's the goal of my company with what's the goal and the use in IT. And they basically start with looking at an IT asset with applications, like if I have an EHR system, and the question becomes, not only should I purchase an EHR system, but when should I change it? When should I upgrade it? And last week, we had Modernizing Medicine. Remember? Dr. Ivana Oberstein. And what was unique about that company? Who can tell me?
More focused in a specific field.
So how do they differ than any other EHR system? So if I go to something like Practice Fusion, anybody hear about them? Practice Fusion is based in California, in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco, and they are an EHR system too. Their cost for an EHR system, anybody know their cost? They were built in Silicon Valley. What do you think their cost is for a physician? Any ideas? Take a guess.
5,000.
5,000. Any other ideas? Isaiah, what do you think their cost is? This company called Practice Fusion. It started as the company, you can see here on their website, meet the EHR that's independent. This looks a little bit, they have blue and white, right? An easy to use EHR that saves you time, makes your practice more efficient. intuitive charting, send anywhere, HIPAA compliant, doesn't it sound good? ONC, what's cloud-based EHR mean? What does a cloud-based EHR mean?
It's saved on like the internet instead of saved at a centralized server.
Right, it basically, is it on premise or is it in the cloud?
The cloud.
The cloud, basically it's hosted by someone else, it's subscribed, how do I get to it? Via a browser, right? Quality payment, meaningful use, now we know all these terms, aren't you excited? And you have all these terms, ONC, which is what? What's ONC?
The Office of the National.
But look at this, and we understand all this, right? They got pictures, get paid faster, some hand patient care, right? Help you when you need it, one platform, always done, learn more. And then what does it have? I love everything about it's easy, my staff loves it, there's no headaches, we fall in love with it every time we log on. We practice our purpose. IC10, look at this, charting. Doesn't this look like what everything that we learned in the book, right? As Google, Facebook, sites, company products, right? Company. Anybody still find out how much it costs? It's called Practice Fusion. Look it up. Cost of Practice Fusion. Everybody signed in?
No, I saw it.
What's the cost? Everybody is,
I tried to look it up, but asked you to get a quote.
okay. Start off with, anybody can find it?
It says as of summer 2018, it's around $100 monthly.
Okay.
So that's a lot. $1,200 a year for
Okay.
that.
Started off free. How much Facebook cost? Free. Started free.
Does that say that you have to do an installment charge?
They're starting now. Because now they need to make money. In the beginning it was actually free. So, the question is, how are they different than modernizing medicine? The structure. What was there, what did you learn from last week with Overstreet?
Yeah, they're setting it up so that the only information you get is based on your specialist in practice.
So it's specialty driven. Broken down, what else? What did you think? What?
Good user interface.
A good and what else? What's the key? How do they decide on the interface? Who decides on the interface?
Surgeons or the doctors.
Okay, and that's the key. That their physicians, they taught them what? JavaScript. And did you hear what else she said?
XML.
XML. Right? And XML is a little hard. XML is just tags with those that are setting those up. But why is it important? To be able to have a data-driven and that. So I really think in the future, that is a clever idea of getting teams of people to work together. The coders, the engineers, the mathematicians, the physicists, and the individual healthcare providers. So that is going to be key in what they're doing. So think about, you need to know what a IT asset is. Data is an IT asset. My staff members are IT assets. My analysts, my programmers, and now notice in IT staff, when they think about the IT, they need to deal with those end users, and the end users are getting to have different roles. And what needs to be the challenge here is how do I make sure my IT group is in alignment with the goals of the organization. And that becomes those emerging parts here. Now there's something called the Gartner Group. Anybody ever hear about them? Put it in your notes. Danny, did you ever hear about the Gartner Group? Okay. Basically what the Gartner Group is, it's IT research company. And they basically tell executives what are the latest trends in technology. And they're a research group that does research that are pretty prevalent. And basically, Gartner has said that there's something called a hype cycle. And Danny, what do you think a hype cycle is? What's hype?
Hype,
Yeah.
like what's popular.
What's exciting, right? And sometimes hype gets over-exaggerated. Overhyped. So basically, what they say here is technology follows basically a path where in the beginning, only the really techie people use a certain technology, and then it gets overhyped, and people get overexcited, and it's almost like too excited. And then it kind of like dies down, it's almost like fads of what really happens. So basically, and what gets produced, so when you think about the Gartner Group, they have said with all technology, you get your early adopters, and then you get basically overhyped, and then you get your masses done, and then you'll see whether it stays. Part of the thing, you know, the cryptocurrency and blockchain, probably last year was overhyped. It's interesting, in publicly traded companies, conference calls, what are conference calls in publicly traded companies, Deb? Have you ever heard of a conference call at a publicly traded company?
Is it between like the board of trustees and stockholders?
It's basically what every quarter they have to talk to the public. And a lot of times they talk to investors, they'll talk to the press, and they'll tell them what's the situation, basically at the end of the quarter, on what's the forecast of my company, how did my company do in the past, and what do I foresee. In conference calls last year, a huge number of companies said we're going to be using blockchain, or in the future we're going to have blockchain. Their stock market rose if they mentioned those words. They did research, and if they mentioned the word blockchain, Deb,
Yeah.
their stock rose.
I remember one company from somewhere in Virginia or Delaware or something like that. Last year, they changed the name of the company, and it was, I forgot what the name was, but it was a simple name, and then they changed it to blockchain.
And then there's
The stock rose and
Kodak.
200%.
Kodak, anybody hear of Kodak? Dying company, right? All the time they were making film, you know, they weren't even in the digital marketplace. In the beginning of the year, they ended up saying, we're gonna go blockchain. Their stock market went through the roof, right? And then they didn't even implement. This year, the conference calls, there was a decrease in the number of mentioning blockchain. Anybody want to take a guess what percentage it went down this year? 10? Any others? 80%. From the hype, so the question is where's that technology going? From the high end, every schmo, right, was blockchain, whether they even knew what it meant, to others going through that. So you can see here on that hype cycle, it can be the same. So the Gartner Group, you can think about it, and here what you need to know is that my organization has to use technology to make it better, my organization, and for healthcare to get better outcomes, not just to hype it. Not because some guys in IT want to play with some technology, or that we think they're going to hype it. And those IT assets, we have to look at them and their costs and their benefits based on the application, the infrastructure, my members I have on the team, whether I have them locally or I'm going to outsource them. So that's that chapter. Okay, and the next one, let me just show you, this is chapter 13, is something called IT governance. What's governance?
It's the access to the system and who manages it.
Basically, think about a government, right, or a governor. Basically has to manage, and what happens is, in IT governance, it's basically who is going to manage what's happening in IT. Wow. Welcome, welcome. Good to see, we got a whole crew here. You can sit right here. So we'll be waiting for you. Great. Do you have any slides or something that you want to show too? Okay, do you want to, you have them online, you have them in, okay.
She's a star, I'm gonna lead up to her though.
Okay, so we can, you can even put in your Google Drive, can you send it to me, or? Okay, just send, you have my email.
Okay.
Yeah, we can plug it, we'll see what we can do. Okay, so if you can send it to me, it'd be great. So basically, you gotta figure out into this IT governance here, basically you've gotta think about the ideas of who's going to be in charge, who owns the data, and who's responsible. That's the key. Because a lot of times in management, you'll see that you can't leave it all to the IT staff, but rather management has to be responsible and lead into this and take responsibility. So basically you're thinking about the board now, you're thinking about your relationships with IT, and also the budget, who's going to be responsible for the budget of IT. Thinking about the failures of projects has to be a global one, and then if we even think about combining the end users, management, and IT, you have to be working together in groups. And how they can be effective. So you can read through this, it's pretty simple in terms of concepts. You just have to make sure that the competitive value of IT is going to be dependent on the responsibility of senior management. They have to get involved. Okay? So, how would you guys like to, I'm glad, Dr. Kava, you brought a whole team here.
Yeah.
This is like, Dr. Kava was our.
I was sitting right there.
Right, see? So Dr. Kava was a graduate. You too can come back and present and bring a whole team with
That's
you,
right.
right? He knew nothing before, right? He was just a simpleton, huh? And now look at him, he has a whole team. Right, so why don't we do this? Why don't we take like a 5-minute break, and then we can get you guys set up, and we'll come back. We were excited to have Dr. Kava. I was telling them that this is a graduate, and also we'll introduce you. You want to just introduce yourselves, and then you can give them like a little short thing, and then we can get set up?
Sure. Well, I'm Bruce Kava.
You can stand up.
Bruce
Come
Kava.
over here, you remember it?
I was a
Well,
former student here.
Right.
She's great. She's amazing, I have to tell you. So I was sitting where you guys are sitting a couple of years ago.
Right.
And so I'm with the Department of Urology. And as a urologist, I do a lot of weird things. And we do a lot of surgery, a lot of clinical work. But I thought I wanted a little bit more out of my career. And so I went back and I did a master's degree in clinical and translational research, and that's how I wound up meeting Dr. Reshnik. I wound up doing some of the coursework have to do with computers, and we'll talk a little bit about it, because I think there's so many options. You guys are amazing. I wish I was sitting there right now, just starting my career. I kind of started a little late in life trying to figure this stuff out. But you guys are right at the beginning, and to get this stuff now, at this point, and with so many things that are going to be opening in the future, it's just incredible. The opportunities are just amazing. And so I don't know, how many of you guys are involved in this? Is all healthcare, right?
Yeah, it's the exact same class
Okay.
as you have.
You guys-
So
I got the
it's a
answers for
combination.
sale, by the way, if you want answers for the exam. you guys-
So, and what did you do for your project, you can tell them? Well, we did the
We'll talk about that,
mentorship.
yeah, I'll
We'll
talk
talk
about
about
that.
it. So he did the exact project that I'm telling you, so. And what it was interesting, we had a nice team, because basically, when we had Dr. Kava, we came up with his idea, and then we said, we'll have other students be part of his group. So basically,
We set up actually a men's health website, which was pretty neat. I mean, it was amazing. We'll talk a little bit about men's health in a couple minutes. I'll kind of lead into what, because we have some really cool stuff. And Elnaz is working with a company called Medox, and they've developed a really cool platform. And part of what we'll be discussing is just men are a different species, okay, from the get-go. As a urologist saying that, as a man saying that, we are different, okay, from so many different aspects. And I guess we'll do after the break.
yeah, let's just even take so we can get set up, let's take a real short break. 'Cause, you know, the problem with a break is like me starting to run. After I break for the run, I'll never continue running. So let's just take a real short break, and let's even less than 5 minutes, and then we'll come back to it, okay? And then I'll set you up, because we're doing the same thing, we're broadcasting, so I want to,
Okay.
just like we did before,
Great.
right? And when Dr. Cobb, I remember even you were in England, and then you were part of our, you remember you came
She wouldn't give me the day
online.
off. I mean, I was in England on a family vacation,
Right.
and it happened to be right around the holidays, and you can't stay away from class, you gotta call in, and you're gonna watch the class from there, so.
Right, so we have one, as a matter of fact, Faith, who, sent an email to you, she's not feeling well, so she's online as well.
So it's
Okay.
funny, because actually, I was online, she had my picture up there, and I sat in front of Big Ben to make everybody jealous. So
Right,
congrats.
right, so he was in London as well. Okay, so let's do this, so what do I need? So that's why I wanted to do it from my machine, if you had something that I could,
I can share the Google Drive.
okay, all right,
Can I
so,
play right in?
Yeah.
It's a lot of space. That's all.
okay, all right, so fine.
But I'm getting
So we
ice
can
cream and then I
plug in,
can-
so-
Am I still gonna sit
Okay,
there?
yeah, because I'll need.
I'm gonna come.
Okay, so, all right, so let me just get the guys, let's see if we have the connection.
It just takes a little bit.
Okay. All right, so let me just see if I have that.
Albert is our nurse supreme. She's gonna tell me what is reasonable.
Hi, we're in 312. You know, let's look up, we got a back row here. I don't know. I'll check. Yeah, okay, yeah. All right, so what are you ordering? So you've demoed up, so you have no, we're on here.
I really like the one that we had at one night. Yeah, I think I'll get that. Do you want to see that? Remember, we had 2 days?
Okay.
Oh, it's been in this.
Are you sure?
So I can't do it through mine?
And then this, and this. Oh, you got eight.
You know, is there a way that I can show it on my? Yes. Yeah, for you. Okay, and what do you have on your? Oh, okay.
policy move, policy pays off. It's not the word. Something has about it. Like,
Now check it.
We can't, it's too many. Okay. I like, yeah.
Eight 8:15.
Is this it? Is this it? Okay, and did you send it to? Is this Calvin's presentation or not? Okay. Okay, great. This is the company report. I think we're okay. I'm gonna look it up. I think we're okay. No, but I'd rather have it here since we brought it over. We're doing it from here. Okay, so something is first. You sent it right? Yeah.
I saw it.
No, like I said, go to a dinner for like between or now
Now, so next time I go there, my sister said that? Madeline is a joy.
the next morning at 10
You
a.m.
graduated today, I have two finals that last day finals, and they're the only ones I have. Do you think, do you want to go up?
Yeah,
I'm working there.
if you come up with me.
Yeah, I will. I was thinking, I'll think you're gonna be alone. But
Yeah, I think it'll do it.
for sure.
I have family up there.
No, but I'm sure you
Like go over,
Yeah, and the only other one was the 11th.
We're coming that night.
12 and 13. So like, yeah.
Okay, folks, welcome back. Yeah, I think we're.
Take you out to graduate after going from but I appreciate it. Colonel Bond. I got curious.
Okay. 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 Folks, welcome back. So. Okay, folks. So we're good.
So one of the coolest things about what I do with a lot of sex, okay? I like sex. We're gonna talk about why it's important. It's really important. Sex is important. Very important. Very, very important for everybody, including men, particularly men, because that's the only thing that gets into my office. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes, why. But what I'd like, this was a part of a presentation I just presented to the Sexual Medicine Society of North America. There really is a society, the Sexual Medicine Society. They're not a bunch of weirdos also. They're not like walking around half naked and like, Adam and Eve outfits on. It's a real thing. We're doing a lot of work actually in sexual medicine to explore a lot of the basic science behind it, because there's a lot of stuff that we don't understand. And even just, you guys see every commercial you see on TV for a Viagra tablet, that came about because of basic science research. We don't have the women's part of that yet. We're starting to develop it, but right now we have the men's, and that's part of my presentation is to talk about men in general, because that's what I deal with on a day-to-day basis as a urologist, and just to explain where ultimately Elnaz is going to give the keynote speaker. She's going to be the keynote speaker because we have a platform that we've developed, that she's developed, that I think is really cool. But just some basic information about men. The title of this topic was given to me, the intersection between sexual health. Sexual health for men is very much related to physical health and men's health itself. There are problems that men have as they get older, notably erectile dysfunction, which is failure to achieve or maintain an erection hard enough or long enough for satisfactory sexual relations. But as men get older, about 50% of men between 40 and 70 will develop erectile dysfunction. And we know from studies, and this is, a lot of people say, well, you guys are a bunch of quacks, and you're interested in like these crazy things and men's boners and all that, but it's a lot more than that, because when it comes down to it, the studies have shown, and we'll go through some of the slides later, that men that suffer from erectile dysfunction, within 3 to 5 years later, a significant number of them will have a major cardiovascular event.
Wow.
So there is a physiologic basis for the erectile
That's
dysfunction, and it's mostly related to circulatory effects, blood flow disturbances. The same blood flow that occurs in the penis occurs in the heart, occurs in the blood flow to the brain, and strokes, heart attacks, and premature death. 40% of men, their first heart attack will die. They will not survive, which is absolutely outrageous. So a guy today in the office who I diagnosed with bladder cancer and I'm treating him, he called me to say that he was having a lot of urinary symptoms. He's a young guy, he's like 56 years old or so, pretty active. He smokes, smokes a little bit here and there. And he came in with his wife, and they were thanking me because he called me about 6 weeks ago. He was in the middle, we just diagnosed him with bladder cancer. I treated him, I started him on some medical therapy to prevent recurrences, but he was also having some urinary symptoms for his prostate. Very healthy guy, we put him on some medication. About 3 days later, I'm having some chest pain. I think I looked on the prescription, and it says that you can get chest pain. I'm just gonna wait till I see you. I said, no, you have to get to the emergency room right now. Turns out he had a major occlusion of his left anterior descending artery, which is called the widowmaker. Okay, he had been having these intermittent bouts of chest pain for a while, it turned out, and he kind of ignored it. That's what men do, they kind of ignore their medical problems. They're taught at a very early age, you gotta be strong, you gotta be self-reliant, independent, and if you get sick, well, either fend for yourself or just shake it off, like the athletes do in a baseball game. Shake it off, you get a little injury, forget about it. But a lot of these times, as you'll see, physical fitness does not necessarily indicate physical health. So, what I presented to the Sexual Medicine Society was that we have 5.6 million people here in South Florida. 48% of those are men, okay? And the vast majority, despite popular opinion about South Florida, the median age for men is 38 years old. So it's a prime group of people to look into. And when you look up men's health centers, so you'd think that maybe a men's health center would be a place that a guy would go for erectile dysfunction, but also for his heart, if he has any other, to get a checkup, things like that. But if you look at what goes up and down our coast here, we have all these, I took out some of the names of the men's medical center, wellness centers, and stuff. But if you pop on their websites, what you actually see is sex, lots of sex on there, okay? This is one of the preferred men's medical centers in Fort Lauderdale. And you can have great sex at any age. They don't do anything more than this. They have a formula that they inject in the men's penises for erectile dysfunction, gives them an erection, very successful, and the guys go out with a smile on their face, but they haven't even touched the subject of, well, have you had any chest pain? How's your family history? Is there a family history of cholesterol? None of that. They just give them an injection, charge them $1,200 for box of 10 of these injections, which they use at home, and they're you know, have perfect sex, but they'll die of a heart attack. So, again, I went through a couple of the websites, Vitality, testosterone replacement, these are all buzzwords in urology. We do a lot of this stuff.
But when they think about men's health, all they think about is, get me erection and let's move on.
That's right. So, it's not just about
I
having a
like
penis.
this, gender differences, it's not just having a penis,
You
okay?
guys know what that is? Anybody know? Does anybody know what movie that is? Come on. Stop. No, Kindergarten Cop. Come on, guys. It was a stupid movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger was in. But, you know, this little kid, the whole movie, he said, boys have penises, girls have vaginas. His father was a gynecologist. That's all he knew about the differences. But it's not about that. It's a lot more. Men rationalize their medical symptoms, respond much higher in self-rated health. They feel that they're healthy if they're physically fit. We know from that control and self-reliance are part of the hegemonic, you know, psyche of the males. And it's resulted in significant delays both in the coronary care unit when men present with heart attacks, with testicular cancer. I have these guys that come to me because I do a lot of oncology too. They come to me and as soon as they come in the room, there's an odor. And I know what to expect. I kind of know from this odor. And they'll say, Doc, it looks a lot worse than it feels. And I know what I'm dealing with. The odor and that statement, because they always say that, they take down the pants. And this big fungating mass coming out of their penis, okay? And it's gross, it's festering, it's teeming, it's gross. I said, well, what were you thinking? and he's had, it didn't just appear overnight. It's been there for probably a year, okay? This has happened, I would say about 2 or 3 times a year.
To a woman.
2 or 3 times a year this happens to us, you know, that we see this person. But it's not only penile cancer, testicular cancer, heart disease, every major disorder, men kind of rationalize it. Because they're not used to being sick, they don't want to be sick. Even, you know, avoidance of trying to get a guy to do a colonoscopy, even a rectal exam, to do a digital rectal exam for prostate cancer. So I have to do it at age 50, most men are recommended to have a rectal exam. They don't want to do that. They want to look for something else. They want to look for an easy way out. And this has resulted in actually a significant disparity between the mortality between men and women. Men die on average about 5 to 7 years earlier than women do. Across all ethnic groups, everywhere in the world you see this image. Women live longer. If you drill down the reasons why guys die earlier, so earlier on in life, in between 30 and 50, believe it or not, I mean, in unintentional injury is huge. It's a huge thing. We'll talk about the unintentional injuries. But suicide is a buzzword these days. There are a lot of men that do commit suicide, and a lot more in the younger groups. But we are seeing it now in older groups of men as well. Obviously, in older age groups, heart disease and cancer are big things. But these are, if you drill this down, if you go further, these are all reversible things. Obesity, heart disease. These are all reversible. Had men watched their cholesterol, taken care of themselves, not obesity, watching cigarette smoking, driving more carefully. I mean, keep going with the slides. Obesity is a problem. It used to be a woman's problem, but men have done a great job of compensating. And so obesity is associated with type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular, there's a whole bunch of different things. 40,000 deaths a year in motor vehicle accidents. This is from Forbes magazine. If you guys ever get it, it's kind of a warped sense that a urologist has to look at this, but these are the top causes of death, occupational causes of death that people get. And it's mostly men's things. I mean, logging industry, the ranchers, garbage men. If you look at, so this guy here, hit the thing again. So this is taken across the street from my house. Get it one more time? A little guy up there. He's on his roof. I said, what third world nation are we in? A guy's standing on his roof, looking through the tiles and cleaning off things. He doesn't have a harness. There's nothing. I mean, he's just standing up there. I don't know what he's doing there, but that's across the street from my house. I said, listen, come down. So he didn't want to come down. He had this machine in his hand. I don't know what he's doing.
Right?
He's cleaning his roof.
Right.
So we do kind of stupid things sometimes, and we don't think about it. Suicide risk. Actually, as many people commit suicide in the United States as die from prostate cancer.
Wow.
It's a huge, huge number. And that's on the rise. Everywhere in the United States has been on the rise. And if you drill.
For both men and female, or never?
Well, for prostate, mostly. So about 40,000 people die a year from prostate cancer, 40,000 die from suicide. So, and most of these are, if you drill them down, they're all completely, stop for 1 second for that one. They're all completely reversible. Go back for 1 second. So this is a cross-sectional study from Australia. This was great. I found this, and basically, this is the disparity between men and women as far as their utilization of health services, as seeing doctors. And you could see from the ages of about 10, 15 years old to about 55, 60, men are completely under women. Women go not only for reproduction purposes, but for all other purposes. There is no male gynecologist. Women are programmed early on in life, see a gynecologist once a year, get your pap smear. Men do not do that, so they disappear until age 55, 60, when they start saying, well, my erections are no longer as good, having problems with my prostate, I can't pee as well as I used to. So that's what drives men in to the office. You can keep going. Actually, this is some male sexual. So this is actually, these are the male sexual disorders. This is from Australia. Oh no, this is from British Medical Journal. You can see actually this is exactly what we saw in the United States. Erectile dysfunction, this is per age group, goes up significantly as men get older. Believe it or not, and I'm giving you guys some background, because there's a reason behind this. But the most common sexual disorder that men have is premature ejaculation. About 35% of men have it. This is obesity. You can keep going. And just to say that there are a lot of reversible causes of morbidity for men later on.
That it can't
by
be
controlling
controlled.
those. Right. But just getting the men into the office is the problem there. And you can keep going. I think we're going to stop there.
You want to stop?
So this was my idea, to develop a real, not one of these injection clinics, but for the University of Miami, we should have a full-fledged medical
We were
male health
talking about
center.
that.
And that's what we did here in
Right.
class. And the men's health center would be run both by urology and primary care, because there are a lot of correlations. Again, the male erection problems translate to heart disease, translate to stroke risk, translate to cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes.
It's a good predictor.
And so these would be the inputs. And then we have a whole bunch of different consulting services for psychiatry to prevent suicide, depression, cardiology, endocrinology, looking at testosterone production. And as men get older, above the age of 60, 50% of men have low testosterone levels. Nutrition and exercise to watch the dietary stuff. And then we have a variety of different consulting services. So this was the idea that, yeah. So this is what we want to do. And that's the Lennar Center. That's eventually where we are probably going to put it. But it's a state-of-the-art multidisciplinary center, healthcare for men 18 years and older, develop and implement a rational evidence base. So a lot of these, you hear about it on the radio all the time, these pills and supplements and formulas. Nobody's been tested, nobody's ever really tested most of these things.
And
there
they're
are
allowed
potential risks.
they're allowed to advertise this even though there's no evidence base.
Yes. Yeah, and they could say this men's health supplement makes you feel great, and they have testimonials. It's always the same pattern. There's no data driving that though. And so that's what we'd like to do at the Men's Health Center, is really just explore some of these. It turns out vitamin E and selenium were two elements that, and this is anecdotal, but they are two elements that in several studies were shown to prevent prostate cancer. Well, we did a study. There was a multi-institutional study across the United States looking at vitamin E supplementation and selenium compared to placebo groups. And it turned out that actually, in the vitamin E group, there's a higher incidence of lung cancer. Didn't prevent prostate cancer, but higher incidence of lung cancer. Selenium did nothing. So that we just proved that. So these are the things that we will have the opportunity to do.
So where are you in this model?
Right
So
now, well,
yeah.
I've got a big donation yesterday.
Wow,
So
congratulations.
to get us started, and so we're.
If we can
have
help
we
you,
have three or four collaborators.
if we can help you in any ways in terms of, what I was talking about in terms of collaboration,
So
electronic.
what we did here, we talked about men not wanting to go see the doctors. We developed a website for men to log on, and they would log in with us.
And then
could
they can
monitor
do with
their-
a phone app as well, you
Right,
know?
we put a bunch of articles on there and informational stuff. They got into, the coolest thing, we developed a lounge so they could discuss it, they could talk to each other on
Sure.
what was the platform that we used?
forgot on that part, but we were using a number of different, we were looking at a number of different platforms.
They could ask doctors
Yeah.
questions, but the
Right.
problem was that I was getting questions all night, you know.
Right.
They were sending me questions all night about, what happens if I have a little discharge now? And I'm like,
Right.
listen, it's
But
too
you
much
really,
information.
extension of the telemedicine, that you get, the whole idea is also that there's some reimbursement involved with it. And I think now with telemedicine getting approved by a number of different states, I think that'll change as well.
Actually approved on 2019, even any type of data, even an image that the patient sends to the doctor,
Yeah.
it can be reimbursed, any
Yeah.
type of data.
And that's what's been, that was holding it up before,
Exactly.
especially in the United States.
So I'm not gonna go into too much more
Yeah.
about myself, but I want to lead into something else.
Okay,
Let me see if I have a-
what do you need now?
So, let's switch topics with it, because I want, what
Yeah.
time do you have? You have until 8:30, right?
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm gonna let Elnaz get on in a second.
Okay.
So leading up to that, so one of the things that I do in urology is a lot of sexual medicine. And men, when they get erectile dysfunction, and we're talking about between 50% men between 40 and 70 will develop it. A lot of them go onto the Viagra, Cialis, Levitra pathway. A lot of them go onto injections. A lot of these guys have serious medical conditions, and very often a lot of them have cancers and stuff, so they can't get erections no matter what they do. So there's a device that I can implant called a penile implant or penile prosthesis. And it involves placing 2 cylinders. I have pictures, but it's just too big a file to send.
okay, that's fine.
We implanted directly in the penis. There's a little pump in the scrotum, and there's a little reservoir that we put up under the abdomen. When they squeeze the pump, cycles fluid, and they get an erection. Works beautifully. Satisfaction rates are very high. Patients and their spouses and their partners love these devices once they're implanted. It takes some time to get them to go for this, because they want to explore all the other options when they go for surgery. So the surgery goes very well. I've done about 2,000 of these implants in my career. The majority of patients do absolutely outstanding. But with any device that you put in the body, there's always an infection risk with these things. So these devices can get it, whether it's a penile prosthesis, whether it's a heart valve, or whether it's some type of other a breast implant. There's all small incidents of infection. So we have them do a number of things before the surgery to prevent the infections. But again, most of the guys, as has been my experience, most of the guys, when they're sitting in the office across from me, they're explaining the procedure, I'm explaining what they need to do, I'm giving them brochures and pamphlets of this, they're blank. They're just like, oh, I can't wait till I get my erection. I don't care, whatever that guy's saying, okay, fine. And their wives are usually taking down all the information, and then they'll remind them whatever, stop your aspirin, make sure that you go for your preoperative testing. Make sure, we usually start them on some, to scrub their genitalia for about 2 or 3 days before surgery with a special soap, antibacterial soap, to prevent the bacteria from
So
getting
you
into
give
the
them all
wound.
these different instructions.
All these instructions. And half the time, they don't remember any of it, okay? A lot of times, they won't even show up for the day of the surgery. I'll call them up and, oh, I didn't know it was today. Well, they've gotten phone calls, they've gotten reminders, and their insurance has approved it. It's outrageous what happens. So, in an effort to, so the problem that we have is men are terrible at their own health care. They are not good at following orders or recommendations. They kind of do what they want to do. And very often what this results in is significant, it pushes me back, because if somebody misses their surgical date or can't have surgery, well, that time limit that I gave them, that 2 hours or 3 hours that I allotted for that could have been used for somebody else. There's a backlog of patients waiting to get in. And so that could have been used for somebody else. It's a total waste of my time. The resources, the nursing staff, the operating room staff, everybody in that operating room is on hold because somebody didn't do something. They didn't stop their aspirin. They didn't take their scrubs. They didn't do the soap. They didn't do this. So what we did was, Elnaz actually just fortuitously contacted me. Her and her husband have a company called Medox, and well, I'm gonna turn it over right now. This is the problem, and she's gonna help
So
me.
what is your name?
Elnaz.
Elnaz. And where are you from?
We're Persian.
Persian, okay, great.
So, hi everyone. I'm CEO and co-founder at Medox. I'm going to give you the entrepreneurship pitch that I always give in the events. I will start
This
with
is
the
great
problem.
for the class, right?
So I will start with the problem, I will show you the product, and feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions.
Okay.
So in simple terms, we automate outpatient follow-up procedures.
Yeah, sure.
So the problem that we are solving is that patient education is terrible in the healthcare system. There are a combination of rushed verbal conversations and printed materials that cause patients to show up to procedures unprepared if they show up at all. Every year, there are 161 million surgeries performed in US, and it is estimated that about 11 million of cases are canceled because of poor patient preparation. Cost of cancellation varies between each specialty, ranging from $6,000 for neurosurgery to $1,400 for each canceled colonoscopy. We started our journey from colonoscopy. There are 14 million surgeries performed in US, and it is estimated that 12% of procedures are canceled because of poor patient preparation. Every time it happens, it's the $1,400 loss for the practice. So this is, for example, the first customer that we had a year ago. It was in colonoscopy before I was introduced to Dr. Kava. This is the pain that the clinic has. So at this clinic, we are doing 15,000 colonoscopies with 12% cancellation, and every time it happens, it's the $1,400 loss for the practice. So this clinic is losing $2.5 million just because of poor patient preparation. So at Medox, we help hospitals to improve operational efficacy by standardizing and automating outpatient follow-up procedures from preparation to post-discharge. The platform integrates into EMR of the hospital, and EMR is the electronic medical record that has all the information of the patient, all the data. We interact with the patients through automated text message. We navigate them at different steps of care while we provide real-time clinical data to the medical team. When the patient is registered for procedure, they will receive a series of precisely timed, bite-sized instructions directly through text message with a link to additional web application. Content of text messages are short videos, surveys, and reminders that help patients prepare and be on track for their surgery. This is, for example, Dr. Kava has been working with us for the past 8 months, and from the time that we started working with Dr. Kava, we have huge progress in the urology, and we actually switched to more going to the urology clinics and expanding at these clinics. So this is, for example, for bladder cancer. And when we are talking with the surgeons, the main point is that you should see what is the pain of your customer or the clinic that you are working with. So for example, for bladder cancer, they have 0 cancellation. Why? Because it's the cancer patient. They're not going to cancel because they forgot the surgery. But when it comes to coming back to the hospital, we have 26% readmission. And the reason is that after procedure, patients should drink 8 cups of water. They forget to drink, they get dehydrated, they get fever, and they come back to the hospital. Every time it happens, it's the 15
So you're basically a way to reduce that readmission.
For the bladder cancer, it's reducing readmission. For colonoscopy, it's preparation. So as you see, you should always get the feedback from the customers to see what is the pain point that you are solving. So we ask the patients, have you drank the 8 cups of water? And for example, yes, I drank 8. No, I drank 5 to 7. No, I drank 3 to 5. No, I didn't drink. So based on the response of the patient, we can predict if the patient has a higher probability to come back to the door of the hospital. So I'm going to stop presentation here. You can launch a demo of the platform by just texting hi to this number. You can have the, if you want.
Okay, so they can take a snapshot of this?
Yeah, sure, you can have it and then.
So why don't you do that? What I like, can I just interrupt you?
Sure.
What they're doing is they're going to be doing for their project something similar. So you can see, that's why I wanted everyone to pay attention of how you nicely took what is the problem. Yeah, the steps of what is the problem, right? How she's showing it, and now what's nice is getting the audience involved by texting the number.
If you want, you can text now. Some of you are see they're doing. So you're gonna get the exact text message that the patients are getting. This is your surgical team. We want to follow up with you. When you click on the link, you are gonna get. This is for the pain management. So I'm gonna pause for 30 seconds. So then all of you have 85. 833-956-8287.
So they just have to text hi to
Text
eight
hi to
three 956-8287. And what should they be getting? What
They are
should
gonna
they-
get this is for launching a demo to see how the platform works.
Okay.
This is the exact way that the patients are getting the text message. That this is your surgical team, please click on the link. When you click on the link, you get directed to our HIPAA compliant secure website, which is the main, factor in healthcare. So this is for pain management. If you're saying that your pain score is above 5, you're gonna get the recommendation to use Percocet. So if you're saying that your pain score is below 5, you're gonna get the recommendation to use Tylenol. And this is the program that Dr. Kava developed.
So from a clinical standpoint, this is very important, because we have an opioid crisis now in the United States. The majority of our patients, it turns out, for years we've been told, listen, pain is a major thing for patients, and make sure that they're out of pain, and the government and everybody was grading us on our ability to control pain. But it turns out, many of the patients took these bottles of 40 or 50 Percocet tablets that we gave, put them in their medicine cabinet, and it was available to not only them for later use, but other people who would come to their medicine cabinet, would steal them and take them for other reasons. So what we're doing now is trying, from my standpoint, my penile implant surgery, I have no idea how many pain tablets a patient should take. I don't know what the norms are. I give them prescriptions, half the time they come in and they say, oh, it's fine, other times they'll want a refill. And I don't know what the norms are. So we're trying to do this to try to get a handle on how much pain the people actually have after the surgery at home. Because once they go home, I have no control, I don't see what they're doing.
So you don't see them, so once they tell you this pain, then you're also tracking then how many pills they're taking
Yeah.
along with that, and then you're tracking also.
And then my prescribing will be a lot smarter as a result of that. Because instead of giving them 50 tablets, I can give them 28 tablets, which is the mean of what they were getting.
So
Then
who
the
is
additional-
designing, so for instance, you did the bladder cancer and then you're
I'm gonna
working?
get to that.
Okay, who's gonna be designing?
So this is the program that Dr. Kava helped us to develop. We start 14 days before procedure. We send different, instructions. It comes down at different intervals. At each timeline, the patient should do exactly the same instructions in order to be prepared for the surgery. For example, if the patient is not stopping taking vitamin E 7 days before procedure, the surgery is going to be canceled. So, and it's going to cost the clinic and everything. And it comes down to the day of surgery, and then we follow up with patients 7 days after procedure. I'm going to just show you one of the lists that the patients are getting.
The phone guy,
What?
phone guy.
Okay.
So this is, for example, exactly the link that the patient gets through text message. Your surgery is scheduled, and it automatically comes up. Do you want to make changes to your surgery schedule? If the patient is saying yes, this data is provided to the clinic in real time. If they are saying no, it goes on to so the patient wants to stick with the schedule. Getting ready for your surgery is the main step. We send instructions as a video to the patient so they know what they should do before surgery. For example, you should stop smoking.
Yeah, smoking before surgery is not a good idea. I mean, it's not a good idea anyway, but before you go for general anesthesia, it can really cause some major problems.
And when they submit, this data is provided to the Dr. Kava clinic. So in our first trial, which was in colonoscopy that we finished, we reduced late cancellation and no-show 64%, which translated into around 700,000 annual loss recovered. We reduced poor patient preparation 44%, which in research community is the main proxy for early cancer detection. And we have 9.6 out of 10 patient satisfaction. We have 3 common questions that we get from our customers. How many of my patients can you actually reach? Can you customize the platform based on my protocols? And how do you collect data outside of our EMR? We intentionally went low-tech and chose text message as our solution. There is no app to download, no logins, no account verification. And as a result, we have been able to reach to 96% of our patients. Platform is multilingual. Patients can choose their preferred language to get their follow-up messages. And at the same time, they can add family members for additional assistance. It's fully customizable, surgeons can upload their own videos, surveys, and materials, or they can design follow-up programs 30 days after surgery, 60 days after surgery, or even a year after surgery. This way, nurses and clinic staff don't need to pick up the phone and call the patients and keep track of the follow-ups. They just look at the data and they see which patient is falling behind or which patient has a higher probability to come back to the door of hospital. So, and the interesting part is that since the platform is customizable, our customers are becoming very creative. For example, in Buffalo Medical Center, in vascular department, Dr. Harris starts 30 days before surgery to send the instructions and make sure that the patients are on track for surgery. And at the same time, she wants to make sure that patients are going for primary care visit, vein mapping, and cardiovascular visit. So this way we are providing care coordination at the clinic. At Johns Hopkins Bariatric Department, Dr. Steele again starts 30 days before procedure by sending the materials and making sure that the patients are on track for weight management. But the interesting part is that after surgery, she sends a diet list with a direct link to Amazon website to make sure that the patients are buying the exact recommended nutrition. And in Florida International University, we are gathering social determinant of health and providing cross-sector alignment between public, social, and medical sector. So the main part in healthcare is data of the patients. So we are providing two options regarding collecting of the data and reading patients' information. If we get integrated into EMR, the whole process becomes automated and this data is mapped into patient's portal. But since EMR integration took a lot of time from hospital's IT, we provide optional EMR integration. So let me show it to you how it works. So we provide a secure file to the surgeons. For example, right now that we are working with Dr. Kava, this is, for example, for a sample. This is the patient's ID, John Smith. You can see here that 1 day after procedure, pain is controlled, no difficulty in walking. So patient is doing well 1 day after surgery. As you go on, you can see that 3 days after surgery, again, pain is controlled and no difficulty. On day 5, after discharge, you can see that the pain is 6, and it gets highlighted when the pain is above 5. Or for example, 7 days after surgery, pain is not controlled, there's a difficulty with the walking, and the pain score is 9. So the nurses and clinic staff knows that this patient needs assistance.
And how are they gonna get alerted now?
So they get an email, an automatic email, that John Smith is having difficulty on day 7. And now consider data of, for example, 100 patients. They just
So who gets this, and then it's gonna be, if it was Dr. Kava's patient, then
We send to the Dr. Kava and at the same time to the practice manager and schedule coordinator.
He'll just get it, but it's not gonna, right now, it's not incorporated into the EMR.
No, because EMR integration means system level integration, and it takes a lot of
Yeah, right, you're
time
gonna,
from our
right,
side
right.
and
You're
so-
starting off this way.
Exactly. A common question that we get is that what if patient takes back? Because if the patient takes back and the surgeon is not responsive, then there is a liability for the clinic and surgeon. So considering this factor, if the patient takes back, they are going to get an automatic response that if this is emergency, please call 911. So it is one-way communication. We just collect clinically important data from patients, and then we make decisions based on that. So this is our current stage.